So we're on Daf Kuf Yud Amid Beis, and if you look at the narrow lines before they get wide on the bottom, it's the third line up from the bottom, or which would be about 12 lines up from the bottom of the Yomut. And the Mishnah tells us that Ketana v'chereshes ein bias achas mehen poteres tzorosa. And this is what we learned in the Mishnah back on Daf Kuf Yud Amid Aleph. And we'll read the Mishnah one more time. Ana. Okay, so let's just summarize the Mishnah. We won't go through the Mishnah inside again right now because of pressure for time. But the Mishnah says that even though both the Ketana and the Chereshes are married with Ishus D'Rabbanan, and they both fell for Yibum, they're not equal. A Ketana and a Chereshes are not equal. And ein bia shel achas man poteres tzorosa. We sort of go back to the deceased, the brother that died, and we try to evaluate which of these two ladies was for him the main ishus, the main isha. And when the Rabbanan established these categories of ishus, like in the cases of a Ketana and a Chereshes, they sort of, in a case where there's an overlap, one man married to two of them, both categories, they sort of left it up to him to determine who's the Ikar Isha, who should fall for Yibum in event that he dies. And therefore, since they're on different levels, the bia of one of them doesn't patter up the other one, the tzara. Amar Rav Nachman Ashke Chase l'Rav Idi, Rav Ada bar Ava, l'Rav Chana Chasne. Rav Nachman reports that he found Rav Ada and Rav Chana diasve v'ka makvu akvasa. They were gathering together Talmidim that came to hear their words in Torah. And this took place Bishuka Difum Pedisa, the Amri. And this is what he overheard them saying. Hodisnan, that which it says in our Mishnah, Ketana v'chereshes, both married to the same man, and he died, and they fell for Yibum. Ein bias achas men poter sarasa, hani mili, that only applies in naflalei me achiv pikeach. The deceased was a pikeach. And when you talk about a pikeach, then you could ask yourself which was in his mind the ikar ha'isha, and which was the tafa. To lo yadinon ibiktana nichale ibichareches nichale. The Gemara is not going to analyze the two tzadim, why the chareches might be the ikar and why the ketana might be the ikar. Ibichareches nichale. I'm sorry. Ibiktana nichale. The asya lichlal dea. The Chereshes is where she is, and that's where she'll always be. But the Ketana will mature to become a Gedola. So that would give him preference for the Ketana. But Ibe Chereshes Nicha maybe has preference for the Chereshes, the Gedola she's more mature than a Ketana. Ubas Bia Right now, she's Re'uyah Bia. The Ketana is not Re'uyah Bia. So that's a case where these two women fell for Yibum from a Piker. Aval Nofla. If the Katan and the Chereshes fell for Yibum, May Achiv Cheresh, so the deceased himself was a Cheresh. And here we have a principle called Mata Minas Mino, that a Cheresh feels more comfortable with a Chereshes. So now the Chereshes in this case is going to have two pluses over the Ketana. Number one, she's already a Gedola and she's a Basbia. Number two, he himself is a Cheresh. Aval Nafla May Achiv Cheresh Vade Bechereshes Nichale. For two reasons. Number one, the Basbia, he, as we said earlier, and number two, Basmina, he. She's a Chereshes just like he is. So they have a certain commonality. So therefore, his adifus is for the Chereshes. Because the Ktan only has one thing going for, she will become a Gdol. Now, Rav Nachman jumps into the fray and he wants to add something to this presentation. Even in the case, because the Tanav Mishnah did not qualify, so even in a case where the deceased brother was a cheresh, there still is room for a suffix. In other words, the adifus of a ketana might even outweigh and trump the two pluses of a cheresh. And therefore, even in a case where the deceased was a cheresh, will still apply the law of the Mishnah that ein bias achas ved poteres is chavert. Ketzad takanasam. So now you're telling me that if this situation arose where Ketana and Chereshes fell for Yibum and the bia of one of them doesn't pat up the tzara, so how are you going to be mafkia the zika and permit these women to marry to the shuk? Omar Rav Chizda, Omar Rav, Kones HaChereshes, so he's makayim the mitzvah of Yibum with the Chereshes, and then umotzia beget. Once he's makayim the mitzvah of Yibum, she's an Eishes Ish Kmura, she doesn't need chalitza, she needs a get. Haktana, tamtin ad shetagdil v'techlas. As a ketana, she doesn't have the possibility of doing chalitza, but wait till she becomes a gedola, and then he'll give a chalitza. But the sequence here is very critical. What do I mean? First, he has to divorce the Chereshes. And only then, subsequently, give chalitza to the Tan. Why is that? Because if he doesn't divorce the Chereshes, then it would be usher for him later on, when she, the Ketana, becomes a Gedola, to give a chalitza. And this has to do with the principle that's formulated at the beginning of Masechet Yevamot, Kevan shelo bana shuv lo yivne. See, he wants to consummate the marriage with the Chereshes, because otherwise there's no way that she could marry anyone else, because once he marries her, then he could give her a get. But after he gave chalitza to the Ketana when she became a Gedola, he could no longer marry the Chereshes because of Kevan shelo bana. They both came from the same Yavam, from the same Niftar. And once one of the two wives of the Niftar gets chalitza, then the other one is Asura. Again, on a Daraisa level, we would talk about an Isa Kares or Isa Lav, whatever it might be. So he'll never be able to make a takana for the chereshes unless he marries her immediately and gives her a get. And then when the katana becomes a gedola, at that point he gives the katana chalitza. But the bia itself is very problematic here insofar as kevin shlo bana shuv lo yivna, and therefore you can't have the chalitza before the bia. Amar Rav Chizda, Shmamina, let's derive from Rav, because Sava Rav, the Rav holds Ereshes Knuya Umishuyeres, Ktana Knuya Viena Knuya. That a Ereshes has a partial Kinyan issues, the way the Rabbanan created it. It's not a full-fledged Kinyan issues. She's not Knuya Legabre, but she's Knuya B'miktas. A Ktana, on the other hand, is a suffix. We don't know if she's Knuya or if she's not Knuya. If she's not Knuya, she's not married to him at all. If she's Knuya, then it's a full 100% issues. Again, on a Darabana level. And now Rav Chizda is going to try to analyze the statement of Rav and prove these two definitions and the contrast between Chereshes, who's Mishuyeres, and a Ketana, who's a suffix, based on the principles of Rav. Now he tries to prove it from the opposite direction. And he's arguing against the possibility that we said the opposite. If you're going to argue that Chereshes is the suffix, Knuya, Viena Knuya, the Ketana is a partial mixas kinyan, which we call Knuya Umishuyeres, then Chereshes, Amai Kones Umotzia Beget. If we're talking about a Chereshes as Knuya, Viena Knuya, then we don't understand Rav's psak that he should first have a relationship with the Chereshes and then he should divorce her. And the Gemara is going to ask now, Tesiv Gabe.